Something I experience as a neurodivergent person navigating online spaces is people who assign themselves the role of gatekeeper. They believe they have the right to dictate how I show up, what I say, what terms I use in these spaces. Now, granted, a lot of these people are advocating for neurodivergent rights, and I'm there with them. I understand what years of ableism can do to us, how it can lead to internalized ableism, to shame, to disempowerment, marginalization. And so it makes sense that people want to fight back against that. But it's strange to me when they attack fellow neurodivergents because of a difference of opinion or a difference of what terms they use. And I understand that some terms are more harmful than others, and that we are progressing as a community, and also the understanding of us as a community from neurotypicals, and we're moving towards a more positivistic approach to neurodivergence rather than seeing as pathologized. That's really important, and I'm on board with all of that. That said, I got a comment on one of my blog posts where I was discussing my diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, which was the diagnosis I received. No longer is present. The diagnosis is now autism spectrum disorder. However, when I got that diagnosis, it was valid at the time. And also, I found the term helpful because it led me to find The Complete Guide to Asperger's Syndrome by Tony Atwood. And this book was incredibly validating. It captured a lot of my quirks, a lot of my challenges, and it validated me in terms of understanding that I wasn't inherently defective, that I was just neurodivergent, and that these were just common traits that many of us experienced. Incredibly helpful for me understanding myself and accepting myself and being able to grieve what I lost because I didn't have a diagnosis or an understanding of my neurodivergence. I just felt that I was inherently defective. So I talked about that, and I also mentioned functioning labels, the perception that I was high functioning, so I was able to get by, but it was minimizing of my struggles. That was the point of why I was bringing up these difficult terminology. I prefer myself to use terms that are more affirming, like high support or low support, because I know what it's like, that functioning is not like a set category you get stuck in. You can shift between ability to succeed, and you might need more support in certain situations, and depending on your internal state, right? If I'm overwhelmed, I'm going to probably need a lot more support, a lot more accommodations because I'm overwhelmed and I'm having a meltdown. I understand all of that. I also understand that Asperger's as a term is now treated as inherently stigmatizing because of the namesake Hans Asperger being associated with the Nazi Party. And I understand that, and I'm very well aware of that. But the person who commented on my blog post seemed to distort some of the facts. And this was their message, and I'll pause between sentences just to give my reflections. The first line goes, "An autistic person that supports ABA, autism speaks, functioning labels, and uses the Nazi-derived term Asperger's that was discontinued nearly a decade ago." Okay, so I don't know where they got the support the ABA, autism speaks line from. Asperger's is not a Nazi-derived term. That's a distortion or a gross oversimplification of history and the facts. And also, it feels like this person has just done a search for blog posts by neurodivergents and then has this kind of cut copy wrote response that they paste in all of their comments. Because it doesn't feel like it's tailored to anything I said or did or to the nuances of my communication. It feels very censoring. Like I go online to find a space to actually discuss things and try to fight stigmatization, and then I have somebody come and misread me and then attack me of being stigmatizing. Very confusing. They then go on to say, get the facts. Support ASAN instead of toxic charities like Autism Speaks. ABA therapy is abuse. Yes, all of it. No exceptions. Black and white thinking right there. Functioning labels are problematic, and the term is autistic. So ABA therapy, many people report that it was traumatic for them. And it's a very complex discussion, one that I think has some nuance, but I first and foremost want to validate and raise up the importance of recognizing that it is quite traumatic for many people. But I also think that this person is very much locked into black and white thinking. They then go on to say, autistic people stay very far from this person. He's dangerous and is likely going to harm you with what can only be ignorance or self-loathing. He needs to sort out. projection much, I would say. Like, you don't know anything about me and you're making all these assumptions and then telling me that I'm this or that, which is like very invalidating. And for me, it harks back to growing up in a neurotypical society and having people project what they perceived me to be, or what my feelings or thoughts were, my intentions were, and then telling me that I was, and then vilifying me because of it. And I'm seeing the same behavior playing out in this message, which to me is just like, can you like wake up to yourself a little bit, please? They then say, your value is not based on making yourself neurotypical, which is not something that I promote or attempt to say is what we should do. That's not at all how I am. I'm very neuroaffirming. You're perfect and valid just the way you are. Valid, I would say yes. Perfect, I don't think anybody's perfect. And this is kind of a very Pollyannish, positivistic whitewashing of nuance once again. You deserve love, compassion, respect, and someone that understands what you face is systemic ableism, not you needing to conform to ableist standards. Okay, yeah, I would agree with all of that last sentence. That's what I push as my message. That's what I advocate for. So I understand that this person is probably motivated by a desire to advocate, to promote a message of love, but mixed in there is a lot of projection and insinuations that I don't think are actually accurate, and it feels like I'm being attacked for no reason at all, as I perceive it to be. I did not approve this comment. I deleted it because I was like, this person doesn't deserve a platform because they've completely misconstrued my argument. It's very straw man fallacy type, and they're inventing accusations to then attack me about. And I want to believe that they, again, are motivated by social justice. But there's this tendency for some people, I know being ADHD, poor impulse control, shooting from the hip, reflexively responding to something, not engaging in nuance. And I think when you have a trauma history, it's easy to get stuck in black and white thinking because your instinct is to find danger, root it out, and name it and avoid it, right? And I get that myself, being autistic and ADHD. However, this to me is an instance of somebody jumping at shadows, reenacting a trauma, like perceiving me to be an abuser and then themselves to be the oppressed, but also the advocate. So they're kind of, the drama triangle is playing out here, if you've heard of that term before. And they're not very aware of it. And I would encourage anybody who wants to advocate, and I always talk about this, is like there's some degree of self-reflection that's necessary. Are you owning your business before you're going out there in the world? Or are you just going out there projecting and blindly lashing out because you have had some harm done to you and therefore you're justified in weaponizing that harm, weaponizing your trauma, weaponizing identity politics to not take accountability for your own feelings and needs, and then, again, punishing other people and lashing out? Have you experienced behavior like this from fellow neurodivergents, or have you seen it play out online? I find it to be, broadly speaking, toxic because it is putting everybody on the defensive and creating a very adversarial environment where there's no nuance, it's just black and white. Have you been the target of this behavior? What's it been like? Or have you yourself engaged in reflexive behavior like this and gone on the offensive? I would love to hear from you.